Welcome, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I am Alex. I am the Director of Marketing at SmartSimple. And joining me today, he's really the brain of the operation in this discussion, is Christian Pugard. We are going to be talking about AI today. So just a couple of housekeeping items. Christian, I'm going to give you a minute to introduce yourself and DAMVAD in just a moment. But just a couple of housekeeping items. To get us going. If you have any questions, by all means, we welcome all questions. For those of you who have been on these webinars in the past, you'll know that in Zoom there is a chat box there. So feel free to type your question into the chat box, and we'll be monitoring the chat throughout the discussion so that when we get to the Q&A session at the very end there, we can bring up any questions that you might have. Also, I believe that the session is also being recorded. So if you are taking notes and things of that nature and you kind of miss anything, don't worry about it. We will send you a recording after the webinar ends. Okay? So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Christian, what I'd like to do is I'd like you to do an introduction of yourself and DAMVAD. You certainly, as well as DAMVAD, are regulars at many of our European events. So I think a lot of our European clients are familiar with you. But for our North American audience, I'm hoping that you can just give us a bit of an introduction before we get the discussion started.
Yes, thank you, Alex, and thank you everybody for joining us today. It's a great pleasure that you chose to spend your time with us for the next 30-45 minutes on this topic. It's a real pleasure. And as Alex, as you said, we have been collaborating with SmartSimple actually for the last couple of years, trying to assist on building new solutions when it comes to the use of data and analytics and AI. And I think that is actually what we do. We work with analytics and AI. We're based in Copenhagen and Stockholm. We are around 40 people right now, and we work with a lot of organizations within the nonprofit world, like foundations, NGOs, public agencies, and others who fund different initiatives. Trying to get to change the world for the better. We also work in other areas like life science and financial services, and within education. We do a lot within higher education and research analytics. But basically, we hope to be able to make sure that our clients and the world can be better by use of data and analytics.
Great. All right. Thank you very much for that introduction. So why don't we get into the topic hand, which is AI and how you can advance your mission with AI. So just prior to jumping on to this discussion, I did have a look at our attendee list. It seems like we do have quite a diverse group of organizations, from foundations to research institutions to organizations that give out scholarships. So this will be an interesting discussion. Now, when I think of AI, I think of HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey, if you guys have seen that movie. But I know that certainly AI really is a lot more than that. And it's more than just that particular cliche. So why don't we start off general? Why don't you tell me a little bit more about what AI is exactly? What does it stand for, first of all?
Well, AI is for artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And most of you probably know it as from movies, or the ones who are curating the movies that you are seeing today, like Netflix as well. So when you go into Netflix and you are shown a selection of series or movies that they expect you to be able to watch, that's actually an AI algorithm that's worked just behind the scenes. Or when you go to Google searches and you search for a couch, and the next time you go and you see a lot of couch ads at the same time, or even if you want to get around in traffic. And you feel like today is a day where traffic is, comfortable and everything is just flowing. That's because they're starting to embed AI algorithms in the traffic light systems all over. If you go to the supermarket and you wonder how come it is still the same temperature even though it's freezing or it's hot outside, and how do they cut the energy savings? They use AI algorithms to make sure that they only spend enough energy when it's needed, to keep saving on energy and reducing the environmental impact as well. So basically, it's about the power of technology by mathematics and statistics and trying to make life much easier for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, we apply machine learning and natural language processing and chatbots, and sometimes even you would call it RPAs. But the main thing is that we would be able to run millions of analytical models in a short time to find the most relevant patterns. And after that, the main idea is to embed it in systems that makes life much more convenient, and so that human can spend the times where human or the time where human makes a difference, while computers can do stuff that humans can't, or that are huge administrative burdens. So these things about running millions of algorithms or models in a very, very short time, just 10 years ago, or maybe even 5 years ago, that would be impossible for many organizations.
Okay, great. You mentioned two concepts there specifically, machine learning and natural language processing. Those are different from AI.
No, that's actually part of AI.
Same? Okay.
AI is you can see it's a broader concept, and then you have some of these things within it. So it's but that's mainly like making sure that the computer can try to remember and understand the patterns in the models that work as that are the best ones in order to define or understand a specific situation. Okay. And natural language processing is something that you do, is an AI models that you use when you work with raw and unstructured text. And machine learning natural language processing could also be machine learning, but it can also be other kinds of models.
Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting how ubiquitous AI is in our everyday lives. I mean, I always think that AI obviously has a place in things like science and technology. Mm-hmm. Now, if we're talking about the philanthropic space in particular, how do you see AI playing a role in that space?
Well, I think for the philanthropic world, it is highly important. It facilitates what you could call kind of effective altruism, which is basically about answering the following question: how can we spend our resources to help others the most, to get most change out of as little money as possible? And basically, the more money you spend, you want to make sure that you get more impact. And I'll just, if you give me a second here, I'll just show you a graph here. I hope that you can see this black screen right now.
Yeah, we see a screen that says the impact of funding is diminishing.
Exactly.
And a black screen.
Exactly. So now I'm going to show you something. So this is around research, and typically you will see that today, research is something that we have been, the scientific world is much stronger today than it was 50 years ago or 100 years ago. But what we also see is that the impact of funding is actually diminishing. So if you look at research from many different angles and many different ways of describing the volume of research, you can see here that actually it has been rising over the last many decades from year to year. But at the same time, you actually see that research productivity here is dropping. So, and that actually goes within many different sectors. So also, if you look at, for instance, within health is one of the ones where you can really see that the impact of research or funding is diminishing. You can see here per clinical trial or per 100 scientific publications, you can actually see that the years of life savings per 100,000 people is reduced significantly. And this is not something that we have done just because we're consultants, right? This is in my team work doing this. And also, if you look at heart diseases, and you see the same kind of pattern, that actually the impact is funding is falling over time of funding, and it goes within many domains: agriculture, business development, psychology. The more you invest, and the more your peers in the world around it invest in one thing, the less positive impact you have. So if you're in philanthropy for change, and not only for charity, you need to embark some of these things and to get most out of it.
Right.
So okay. I think to sum it up, AI for philanthropic foundation is about more effectiveness, more impact for the money you're funding, less time on bureaucracy, less time on vetting, these kind of things that are typically very, very exhaustive for foundations and funding organizations.
Okay. So clearly, obviously, there's a place for AI in philanthropy. For me, I think the next logical question, and really the biggest dilemma, is how does it fit within my own organization, and how will I change because of it?
Yeah. So nowadays you have a lot of AI-driven tools available, and I think that it's important to start working with some of those, because they'll give you some of the benefits right away from day one. AI should be easy; it should not be complicated. At least if you're not, an AI scientist or AI professional, it should help make your life much easier. So I'm gonna show you, a slide more, because what we have done is that we have tried to build some tools that are actually helping foundations here or others in the philanthropic world to make life easier. So this is, and I'm going to show you an example today. We built, for instance, this similarity identification feature, which is actually already present in the SmartSimple platform. So it's really easy for your clients to utilize that. We developed it in collaboration with the Novo Nordisk Foundation, which are in diabetes and health research. And it enables you to, in a second, identify if, for instance, you see resubmissions or plagiarisms or other similarities in your pile of applications. So when you want to make sure that you fund one thing or don't fund one thing in 1 year in one committee, you want to make sure that it actually that when you see a similar application, that you treat it more or less the same way. And you can say that is something that you can easily do, but you can also say that it's actually a challenging, very, very challenging, because it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. If you just to give you an idea of how much information you have to be able to scan through, you should be able to, if you have like between 1,000 and 1,500 applications, and if you want to make sure that you don't see any duplicates, then you have to read for 320 years consecutively. So that is
wow.
That's incredible, right? So AI makes something possible, and these algorithms can do it like that, like a snap with your finger. Another thing is we have developed this external similarity feature. Actually, we developed it along with some of the SmartSimple clients, which enables you to see if the projects or the things you work with have found other similarities outside of your own world in other sectors or in other research domains, or also if the things that you're doing, producing, if actually that's spreading to other domains. So the knowledge that has been producing through some of the projects that you fund or some of the initiatives that you open up, that these are actually spreading immediately. And a third thing, just to give a few examples here, and we're going to dig more into one of it, is this impact tracking feature, which we are right now rolling out with some environmental technology programs. Here, this with the Danish Environmental Protection Agency, in order for them to track and predict if the companies they support will do better than if they did not fund it. So not only to track retrospectively, but right now actually can we see it as we fund them and throughout that process if we make change and not only charity. So here again, it's about more effectiveness and more impact and less time and bureaucracy. And that's the main thing around some of these issues here, to get the benefits of AI. And that's how you will change an organization as well if you start utilizing it.
Okay. So if I were to implement AI, what would be the first steps that I would take? So, I mean, I would imagine that obviously a tool or some sort of technology is one major component of that. But often is the case that the technology or the tool itself, you need to know how to use it properly, and you need to be you need to have the right fundamental framework in place or foundation in place in order for you to be able to effectively roll out something as seemingly sounding sophisticated as AI. So are there steps that as an organization that I should be taking in order to make myself AI ready?
Yeah, and actually I'm gonna share something again here to you. So I think that, the main part is that using some of the easy application tools, make sure that you see the results in a few days. I think that, so I highlighted this here. I guess that you can see this this chart here as well. Like typically you want to build what we could call a scalable development pipeline also around when the use of AI. Instead of starting with the big AI project that takes a lot of time, you need to get some good experiences and get some benefits right away. So I guess if you utilize some of these things, you'll see results in a few days, and you'll probably feel the results within the first call if you're using a call and you're using AI around that. So I think you should start small. But if you also in parallel want to make a strategy around how you want to work with AI, then you need to start from scratch, right? You need to make an AI strategy. Where should this issue take you? And then starting building it from here. So here's a guidance to AI strategy. It's a 5 building blocks here. So one thing over to the left here is, what is your goal of the organization? That's not really around AI. That's just your strategy, also as a foundation or a funder or a nonprofit. But then you should ask yourself, how should AI actually help on this? What kind of things do you think we'll get better at if we utilize AI? Sorry for that. And then you can ask, how do we get there? And what kind of things do we have in our organization today? What is our organizational readiness? What kind of business processes? What kind of data management practices, data assets, and technology assets that you can utilize to make a good AI strategy right away? And then think, okay, what kind of leadership and planning? What kind of projects should you develop and execute? I think you should develop and execute like this: small projects that succeed, that makes you become much, more confident and get some of the good results before you start spending a lot of money on the wrong project. And then also work on the cultural readiness. So afterwards, I think that'll be the main points here.
Okay, and just a reminder, everybody, we'll share this recording of everybody, and maybe we can share the slides as well. So for those of you that were looking at that particular slide and we're trying to jot down the different questions that are involved with the AI strategy model, we make sure you have that information.
Yeah, we definitely share it. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we have developed an AI strategy, and so we've made the decision to adopt AI in our organization. So we're prepared to implement it. You kind of touched on this already, but how long generally will it take before we start seeing results? Is it dependent on the organization and the goals, or is there some way that I will know that AI is actually making an impact as I'm going through this process of building up my AI program?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I just mentioned, if you look at some of the more utilizing some of the tools, you should be able to see the results fairly quickly, within a few weeks or even days, or at least within the first 1 or 2 months, depending on the way you try to to integrate it with your processes. But also, if you look at the strategy as well at the same time, you probably, or if you start with strategy, right, you probably won't see the results within the first year, I'd say. And I think that that is not something to do with AI. It's something to do with strategy and strategy processes. You have to rethink everything through. So I think it's important to keep focus on some of the features that you can utilize and do right away. And I think that sorry, if you want to have some more, some good examples of organizations who've been working with AI in many ways, and building on a good strategy as well, then I think that then you're most welcome to reach out to me, and I'll put you in contact, just complimentary, with anybody who have been working with these strategies and done it successfully.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I just want to shift gears for just a moment here, and then just so everyone knows, we will be showing a quick demo in a couple minutes, but I just had a couple more questions I wanted to ask because I'm really kind of curious about this stuff. I actually want to talk about ethics for a second here, because all of a sudden when we talk about AI and we're talking about intelligence, I think the natural question that gets raised with a lot of people is, will AI get to a point where it replaces human workers? I mean, will we still have a place when we fully implement AI to its fullest effect?
Well, I hope that we come to a place where we implement and use AI to its best, to its full potential. I don't think it will ever, replace human beings. I think that at least not in the foreseeable future. There's so many things that we can do that AI won't be able to do. But I think the good part is that if you try to use AI in an elegant way, then you are actually removing the burdens from the people. You're removing the challenges that they work with. A lot of people, probably yourself, Alex, have experienced this about doing stuff, repetitive tasks, or things that's really annoying, right? And can we really get rid of all that? And that is some of the things that AI can use, can assist you with. And then you can spend your time on the value adding that people collectively in teams or brainstorming sessions on collaborations with each other actually are able to do at the same time. So, but there's a lot of the things that we do today that AI can, help us get rid of, so that we can spend our time maybe sitting like this, thinking good thoughts and discussing and having good debates and drawing what we think is important. But I think just three points around your question about how to keep AI ethical. The main thing is about the use of AI. What's the purpose with the use of AI? Like any other technology, you can use in a good way and a bad way. And I think that if the purpose is good, then I think it's unethical not to use AI. I think we help education institutions make sure that some of the young kids, they get through the university and they don't drop out. So they actually get an education, and they actually are better equipped to get on the labor market afterwards. Comparing with knowing AI, we got AI, we're not going to use it, so these kids are dropping out. So the purpose is important, and if the purpose is good, I think it's unethical not to use it, like unethical not to use any technology that would help improve people's life. The second thing about transparency. Previously, we saw a lot of AI solutions where AI was a black box. And I think you need to be able to explain or understand why things are as they are in the models, and they are today. It's not really complicated today. And a third point is obviously, I'd say that true AI is unbiased AI, because we need to make sure that be careful about things like race or sex or religion, that they don't interfere in the models. But it's not as if today, like human beings, they don't have prejudice around some of these other issues, right? It's but we need to make sure that they're not embedded in the models that you work with, and that is something that you should be aware about. And when you are that is actually possible, because you can know what is the structure of the model and the structure of why do we find the things that we find and stuff like that.
Okay. I actually wanted to ask also, just because AI is so intimately linked to data, and obviously without data, AI is has only as limited effect. So just in context to with the way and the direction that things are going with legislation and things like that, particularly I'm thinking about GDPR. How does AI fall within GDPR, the framework of it, and can it work within it and still effectively?
Yes, I think it can work within it. And I think that it's actually the GDPR and the data protection issue is good in many ways. It has lifted the level of many organizations to above what they were able to do before, also when it came to data and analytics and also AI. And I think that what we see now is even more legislation around how to use it. If you're in a bank, how do you actually use AI to make sure that if you are granted a loan or not granted a loan, that you actually are able to understand why you were or were not granted that loan. So I think it does add to, and it does work fine with it. I think it has to work with back to the ethics question that we just discussed a few minutes ago. And one of the things is that if you have like a lot of data, you would not as a person be able to make sure that you don't have any, personally identifiable data in that pile of data. If you have like thousands of records, that would be almost impossible. But with AI, we can do it like this. We have developed an anonymized API, so that you can anonymize huge bunks of questions or data, and we can anonymize it like very, very fast. And we are sure that there aren't any, private information that we want to share in these products.
Right. Okay, great. Just to give you a heads up, Christian, we did have a question about elaborating further on implementing AI, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to park that question for now, because I know that we want to get into a demo just shortly. So we'll address that after we go through that. I did have one more question before we get into the demo itself, but obviously with what's happening in the world today, with the global pandemic, the way we work has changed forever. And I'm kind of curious as to what your thoughts are on, and have you seen AI as a topic of conversation really come up more because of the fact that the way we have to work now is forever changed?
Yeah, I think Corona has changed a lot of things for us. One of the things is that today we'll be working. It's a habit to work remote. Like a lot of people at least are given that chance to try to work remote, and they've developed new organizational processes to do it. It also challenged our daily lives at the same time. And I think that many organizations also in this world of philanthropy have taken fast and proactive measures in trying to address fighting Corona. Personally, I have been reviewer for the European Institute of Technology Health. Their Corona effort, trying to review some of the applications that came from researchers, organizations, hospitals around Europe. So how can we actually immediately address this issue? And I think that there are some extremely beneficial ways of application of the technology. So I think that we see that there's a new need for more powerful systems when things move fast, and I think that's incredibly important. Yeah. And I also think that the world has rapidly become more digitized, and everybody's much more keen on using some of the new tools from now on. I think foundations and family foundations and funders generally, they see that in this Corona situation, they have been, incredibly fast, and they have been developing new schemes and funding new initiatives like overnight, and that's really awesome to be witnessing across the world, I'd say. But when they grind faster, they also risk, double funding the same thing twice, or they risk funding things that they actually don't know is going to have the impact or not. And of course they are, because it's necessary to act fast. So these kind of solutions that you can utilize to make a faster granting process, more effective vetting, make sure it doesn't take too long to vet and stuff like that, they get increasingly important.
Yeah. I know that is a major topic that we hear time and time again, is this idea of trust-based philanthropy and being able to respond quickly, and how to get through the vetting process more quickly, but even while still doing a thorough job of that. So that's really good. Okay, what I'd like to do, Christian, is I know that you had a couple things you wanted to show us. Why don't we go through that, and then we can go back to some of the questions that I think were being asked in the chat itself.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll just give me a second here. I'll just share my screen, sure. And I think I'll get back to the question that I think you mentioned. One was asking about, so what can we actually say about this implementing process? And I think that are you seeing this right now from the SmartSimple platform? Alex, are you seeing this from the SmartSimple platform?
I'm seeing this, yeah.
Okay.
No, actually, no. I'm just seeing a slide here.
Okay.
You're trying to put up a screen of the SmartSimple system, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not seeing that There we are. Okay.
Okay, you still seeing it?
Yep. We're good.
Excellent. Full screen, I hope. So what we see here is that we have actually tried to build it in a way that it's actually very much easy to build and apply. And I'll just go through it more slowly in half a minute or something. But actually a model or an AI model that works as a plugin directly in the SmartSimple platform. And that is what we think. And one of the ideas we had behind the collaboration with you guys was to try to, empower these organizations with easy applicable and easy implementable AI. Instead of trying to make things complicated and difficult and taking a long time, we wanted to make sure that you can actually utilize some of these technologies by using it. What is available just through the platform, like anything else. So what you see here is actually that we have so this is a set of dummy applications here, but they're actually based on real and rewritten applications. So you can see here that actually we do find that there are some 4 applications here at the same time, and you can see some information from the SmartSimple platform and the status and everything. And you can see here that we can see the similar applications. So now this identified applications, and you can then click in and you can compare content. And here you can see a similarity score up to 93%. And actually it is based on some really advanced algorithms that do look at 2 things. It does look at, one thing is, a copy-paste similarity, what you typically use in plagiarism, but also more content-wise similarity, so that you're actually able to utilize and find similarities across your big pile of applications or status reports or whatever it is to identify similar applications. And what you see here to the left one is one application, and another one is another application, and it could be something else. It could be a status report, or it could be a final report, or some of the things that have been produced throughout a project that our organization funded. And here you say, like, we click this link, and you can see that there are like 2 lines, line 1 and line 2, and it just shows the similarities of these lines. And behind that, you have powerful algorithms that understands and read all of the things in this application pile of applications, and you can look at all the different kind of similarities. And that is just to give you an example of something that is actually really complicated. It will take 2 months to build this from scratch. And so it take a lot of time to implement it technically, model and working with a model and stuff like that. And I think that, and this is just an example of something that is, really complicated underneath, but it's really easy to understand and look at for the viewer in the process, the branding process itself. And it has to be, because we don't have to be data scientists, all of us, or data engineers, or from mathematics to be able to utilize it. Then AI will never have the impact on the society that we could hope for.
Okay. So, as you said, that took about 2 months to build, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we go back to that implementation question, I gather that you would be able, just if you used your own experience in implementing an AI strategy, I think maybe one way of maybe broaching the topic on elaborating further on implementation is, if you are working with a client, someone comes to you net new and they don't have an AI strategy in place and they want to implement the stuff that you just showed us. What would that experience be like for the client in you working with them? What kind of milestones would we be working towards, and what would they need to do in order to prepare themselves to work with you in order to effectively roll out and start using the technology that you just showed us?
Yeah. Well, if you look at something like this one, since it's already built in your platform, it's actually fairly simple. So you just need to, have a meeting, show online meetings showing how does it work, make sure that everything's set up the right way, and then you can just start using it. But if not, then typically we divide our work into 4 phases. And the first one would be, okay, what do we want to achieve with this? No matter if you have an AI strategy or not, but you're just trying out the first AI project, you would need to say, how can this support the organization and the goals of the organization? And then we look at more into what kind of data do we have, what kind of infrastructure do we have, because we want to build the most simple one in the beginning, to make sure that actually just that we focus on getting the benefits right away, and then we can always complicate things with infrastructure and modelings afterwards. Correct. And then we start exploring the data and building the models. And the fifth step would be to implementing the models. So we divide it into phases or sprints if you're working in very agile framework, and then we want to get the benefits immediately, and it is feasible. We have worked in banks, and we've worked in retail, and we've worked in energy and in higher education. It's feasible to get benefits right away, and I think it's important to focus on that. And then we might be thinking a few months to get started and to get the first benefit out of such a project.
Right, right. I mean, for me, AI seems to be a concept that certainly large enterprises, large organizations would be able to really take advantage of and implement. Do you find that there's a critical mass or a size of an organization that really you can see the impact of AI, or is it really, can it be used by organizations of any size?
I think actually we have worked with organizations of any size, and I think that sometimes the smallest one are the easiest one to work with in many ways.
Okay.
We worked with an online retailer, and they had 2 people employed, and the rest were consultants like us. So you know, they hired people, and they different consultants, and they worked with specific topics, shut it down, successful or not, they shut it down, they moved on fast. And I think that actually sometimes for our organizations, it's much easier because you don't have a lot of legacy, you don't have a lot of bureaucratic processes, and you can start focusing specifically on what to gain from one of the from these kind of solutions. And I think that sometimes some have asked us what if we are a small foundation, for instance, we only have a few clients, so we only have a few applications. And I even think that sometimes, of course, you should think about where does AI give you the best benefit, the best possible benefit. Because if you don't only have 5-10 applications for a call, then you might not use a lot of AI to read through these immediately. But if you want to make sure immediately that you don't have a personal identifiable information, we talked about GDPR before, you can do it like this instead of doing it manually. Or you can say, we are a very small team, we have these very few applications, but we have a big world out there, and we want to know how this actually relates to the rest of the world. Then you can't sit on Google all the time, copy pasting in different sentences and different words, and you can't do all the big measure, the big impact measures. So I think what you want to do there is to think, where is it that AI can leverage our impact of what we do?
Great. Okay. And actually, that was a question that, and I don't want to call Ida out specifically, but Ida was asking, I know she had something specific regarding the actual foundation itself. Is it worth the effort if you're a small foundation with, for example, less than 200 applications per year? I think what you are telling me, though, Christian, is that it is worth it. Obviously, you have to put a commitment into wanting to do that and to really make sure that AR is an integral part of your program, right?
Yeah, typically also if you're small foundations with a few things that you fund and a few applications, then you're also maybe a small team. So if you want to do awesome stuff with this, then you need to find out how you can leverage the impact of your own work. And that might not be comparing applications, but that might be other things. Back to some of the other things we looked at earlier.
Okay. So Ida, I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, please elaborate with other thoughts. But otherwise, we can always answer that question offline as well if you want to have a more thorough discussion. I did have a specific question that came through as well, Christian. How can we use and train AI to help us with our student selection process? So I think this one is specific in the world of scholarships.
Yeah, I think that you can do that in many ways, because I think that if you're a foundation who's funding students, or if you're a university that's funding students, then it's pretty important that you try to help, fund the people that will that you can actually help, right? So you're not funding kids or young people who would come through anyhow, or when you have funded them, you want to make sure that you have the right efforts in place in trying to actually make sure that you can assist them throughout that journey, either through the application process or after the application process when they started at the university. And sometimes we did build some, big complicated models that work in big institutions with more than 20,000 students per year. But we also built some very small solutions that you're actually able to run through and utilize on a subscription basis as well. Actually, just pay per pupil. So I think that this is a place where there's a lot to do for the world, because one of the things that can have a tremendous impact on tomorrow is the education of young people.
Excellent. Okay, great. So I'm just looking at the time here. We're just about at our time for our discussion for today. I know that we've only really just scratched the surface when it comes to the topic of AI. So, we stayed general here today, but I'm hoping that maybe we can have follow-up discussions, Christian, maybe where we can get into a little more detail around AI and perhaps implementing AI. But in the meantime, so if our attendees want to get a hold of you, if they have questions, if they want to explore implementing AI in their organization, how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah. So I think you're seeing this right now. So here in the bottom here, you can see my email address, kmp@damvad.com. You're most welcome, all of you, just to contact me. Also, if you want to learn about other people who have been using AI, other foundations who've been using AI, and to get in touch with those guys, we can help you with that, just complimentary. Also, right now we do have so this similarity feature I did show you previously. Due to Corona, we do have a like the first 4 months of for free if you want to work with it. It's like a third of a subscription throughout a year. And the main idea about this is that we want to help foundations as well, who are actually trying to battle the corona. You have to, the coronavirus, and we're doing a lot of efforts. And what we do is that we will completely free of charge help you set it up and make sure how to integrate it in your process. So you shouldn't care about too much about that. And you can actually, when you see the link afterwards, you can click that button, and then you'll get to another page here like this, and you can just sign up automatically, and everything works completely fine. We only have limited resources here to assist. So the first 20 new users will get that if they contact us before August 15. You can do it by this sign up page. You can find it on the Wikipedia as well. You can also contact me about this or anything else, and we'll be there to assist everybody.
Wonderful. Okay, and I think what we'll do is when we do send out the recording, we'll also pass along Christian's contact details as well, so that if you miss jotting down his contact information, you'll have that available in the email as well. But yes. That was a great conversation, Christian. I hope we can do it again.
It was, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time, Alex. And thank you for everybody who listened in. It was great to have you as audience.
Fabulous. And then, as I said, for our clients, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask offline, feel free to contact us directly at SmartSimple, or if you've got Christian's contact information, feel free to reach out to him directly. Yeah. Thanks very much, everybody.
Bye.
Have a great rest of the day.